due to the governor's emergency executive order via Zoom. The contact information is on the agenda and also on the Met Council website. Members of the public may monitor the meeting by using the call-in number and passcode. It will be streamed live and recorded, and we encourage you to monitor the meeting remotely. If you have comments about a matter on the agenda, please submit them via email. And for those of us who are council members or staff, you know the routine for using the mic and getting my attention if you have a comment you want to make. As you can tell, I'm a little spacey, more spacey than usual. So we will wing this and get through it together. You have before you the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Any corrections, changes? All right, hearing none, we'll take roll on approval by the agenda, of the agenda. Michelle, if you want to just do the roll and the approval of the agenda both together.
Yes, Chair Vento. I did receive notice that Council members Lilligren and Mousse will not be attending today's meeting. So I will start with Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Here.
Chambliss.
Here.
Cummings.
Here and I.
Johnson.
Here and I as well.
Lee. Lindstrom.
Here.
Vento.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the minutes of the August 17th, 2020 regular meeting of our committee. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval, Lindstrom.
Lindstrom moves approval. Second?
Cummings seconds.
Cummings seconds. Roll call, Michelle.
Yes, Chair Vento. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
I.
Thank you. Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee. Lindstrom.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
And under item number 4, first item in the business section is the City of South St. Paul 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Comprehensive Sewer Plan Review File 22398-1 presented by Patrick Boylan. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Again, as you said, I'm Patrick. I work in local planning assistance and the sector representative for Districts 13, 14, 15, and 16 in community development. I'd like the committee to know that Michael Healy of South St. Paul City Planner, pardon me, and Rita Trapp, planning consultant with Hoyton and Kogler Group, are in the audience today. And a special thank you to all of their help and assistance. Rita has been a tremendous asset for both me and the community, so just wanted a personal and professional thank you at this time. Before you today is a review of the South St. Paul Comprehensive Plan. Next slide, please. The regional systems, this map reflects figure 1 of the staff report and identifies the location of the system components within the South St. Paul. Major facility includes Interstate 494, which passes roughly east-west through the southern portion of the community, and U.S. Highway 52 that runs north-south on the western border. Two regional trails, River-to-River Greenway, and the Mississippi River Regional Trail are also located within the city. There are 3 interceptors and 2 lift stations, 2 meters rather, within the community. Next slide, please. The community is designated as urban center, and this image reflects figure 2 of your staff report. South St. Paul is located along the northern border of Dakota County and surrounded by the communities of St. Paul, Newport, Inver Grove Heights, and West St. Paul. Next slide, please. Forecasted growth is shown before you and reflects table 1 in your staff report. The yellow highlight, bold underline reflects some changes. The discussion between the city and the council staff indicated a slight change or reduction overall forecast. Between 2020 and 2040, the council forecast, based on the city's proposed forecast, that the city will grow by 350 people, which represents 600 households. There will also be an increase of 700 jobs in the city in the same time frame. Next slide, please. Table 2 from the staff report is shown here and illustrates the planned residential density in the urban areas of the city. The overall density for guided residential land expected between 24.6 and 60 units per acre. Communities with an urban center designation under Thrive are expected to plan for forecasted population and growth at an overall average minimum densities of 20 units per acre for new development and redevelopment. South St. Paul is consistent with this policy. Next slide, please. Existing land use includes pale yellow areas. The red delineations, the red polygons are their different planning districts. But the vast majority of the city, like most suburban communities in the Twin Cities, is a pale yellow, which is their single-family detached. If you notice along Interstate 494, which again is that swath that moves from the west to the east, there is quite a bit of industrial land, and also taking advantage of rail spurs and locations along the Mississippi River. Next slide, please. The future land use continues this trend, although quite a bit of the industrial area, which is the gray, there's quite a bit of new commercial area along Concord Boulevard. The city has been very active in attracting and retaining various businesses and is quite active in this area. Also noticeable is the hatched area to the south, a very important part of the plan. Very important part of the city. That is the South St. Paul Municipal Airport. Future land uses, again, are generally the same. There are some concentrated areas where there's going to be some mixed use, some activity, attracting office and industrial and some retail and, of course, residential, but then also a significant commercial area and then a continuation of support of the light industrial areas along the rail lines and the river. Next slide, please. The proposed findings before you today is that the plan conforms to Metropolitan System plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local government units and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. The Environment Committee will consider this later in September, and then the next day, the full council will consider this as well. Just as a quick reminder that to the committee that Mr. Healy from the city and Ms. Trapp from Hoyes & Kogler are on the call as well. The proposed action before you, this is actually over 2 slides, but the first slide here is to authorize the city of South St. Paul to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect, to revise the city's forecast downward as shown in table 1 of the attached record, reviews the city's 2021 to 2030 affordable housing need allocation to 57 units. Next slide, please. And advise the city to provide the council with the date they adopted the final service water management plan, and within 60 days of receiving the final DNR approval, the city must adopt the Mississippi River Critical Corridor Plan and submit a copy of the final adopted plan and evidence of adoption to the DNR, the council, the National Park Service within 10 days after adoption, and implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecast, land use, and water supply. With that, I am available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Committee members, are there any questions? I can't see people, so if you have a question, please speak up.
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
Yes. You go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just curious. It seems to me that there might be a new park in the future based on several of the slides comparing the old from the new. maybe I'm not 100% as to the orientation of um, in the maps, but maybe in the area, I don't know if it's District 5. I thought I saw a 5 on one of the maps. I'm just curious if that's the case.
Patrick.
Yes. Councilor Engelbrechtson, Atlas Engelbrechtson, and Chair Vento. Yeah, the city is, parks are a big part of their plan, local parks. From a regional policy perspective, there are no expansions or changes to regional parks. However, the city does have a number of parks. I'm not sure exactly which ones they are, but they do have improvements planned for several of their parks.
Chair, I think one of the reasons why I like pointing this out, if it is in fact that I was accurate in identifying an increase, is so oftentimes in our comp plans we're seeing a net decrease in green space. So from a regional planning perspective, local parks, regional parks, both important, but also just in general of carbon sequestration and also green space planning as a part of the regional parks plan or the regional planning for the communities as a whole. I like calling that out if that was accurate, and just wanted to hear if that was something they were doing. It's not something we've seen in a lot of our comp plans.
Thanks for noticing that, Councilmember Atlas Engelbrechtson. And your point is really well taken, and especially in the midst of the coronavirus, I can't imagine a better resource for families to have nearby. I was out walking my dog around lunchtime and ran into a mother and daughter at a nearby park. And it was their lunch break and kind of their recess. And I would imagine that a lot of families who are dealing with homeschooling or virtual schooling are relying on those local parks a great deal at this time. So that's an excellent point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, remember, I may not see you indicating you want to speak, so go ahead and pipe up if you need to. Is there a motion to approve the South St. Paul 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Sewer Management System Plan? Councilmember Lee represents this city. He's not here, so.
Johnson moves.
Second from Wolf.
Okay, Johnson moves. Or was it Johnson that moved? Wolf seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Before we do the roll call, I want to thank both of the city's representatives. I don't live in South St. Paul. I live near South St. Paul, and I regularly am in South St. Paul. It's a lovely community, and we want to thank you for your work on this. We know it's an enormous amount of work, so thank you very much. Michelle, roll call, please.
Yes, Chair Vento. Atlas Engelbrechtson,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. The motion carries. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Vento.
Our next item is 2020-230 City of Spring Park 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Comprehensive Sewer Plan, review file 22200-1. Jake Riley is presenting this evening. Thank you, Jake.
Good evening, Chair Vento. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Today, so as you said, I'm Jake Riley. I'm the Secretary Representative for District 3, working for the Local Planning Assistance Group in Community Development Division, and I'm here to present the City of Spring Park's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Unfortunately, Dan Tolsma and the City of Spring Park's Administrator and Consulting Planner Nate Sparks were not able to join us today, but I do want to extend my appreciation for their work on this comprehensive plan and extend a big thank you to them both. Next slide, please. In before you here is figure 1 in your staff report, and that identifies the location of regional system components within the city of Spring Park, which is nestled in Lake Minnetonka. And of note is the Dakota Rail Regional Trail and Shoreline Drive County Road 15 that run through the city east to west. There's also a regional trail search corridor for the Lake Independence Trail extension that runs along the eastern border of the city. Next slide, please. Spring Park is identified as a suburban community consistent with Thrive MSP 2040. It's located in southwest Hennepin County and is surrounded by the communities of Orono and Mound. Next slide. Forecasted growth for the city demonstrates that the city will grow by 220 people, representing 140 households between 2020 and 2040, and there will be no change in jobs in the city in the same time frame, and that is represented in their plan as well. Next slide, please. Planned residential density shown on Table 2, also in the staff report, reflects the change only between now and 2040. They have identified 5 areas of potential development and redevelopment, including 3 that will have residential uses on them. 1 medium density residential area, a mixed use area, and 2 mixed use areas that will have a mix of uses of residential and commercial, potentially light industrial. They're also shown on figure 6, I think, in the plan, but that's coming up. Next slide, please. So the overall density for the change is 20.4 units per acre, which exceeds the minimum that they're required to have, which is 5 units per acre. The map in front of you now shows the city's existing land use, which is figure 3 in the staff report. They're predominantly residential at 55%. Most of the existing commercial office space, or 21% of the land uses, and industrial areas, which is 4% of land uses, are near those transportation corridors I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Approximately 12% of the city is park or open space, just shown in figure 3. Most of the residential land uses in Spring Park consist of single-family homes on small, narrow lots, which is, I guess, historically represents what Spring Park was to the region, which was a place for a summer home. And so the higher density developments that have been built in the last couple decades are near the commercial hub along County Road 15 on the western end of the city. Next slide, please. The 2040 future land use map shown here and referencing figure 4 in the staff report suggests or proposes for Spring Park new construction and redevelopment at minimum densities of at least 6 units per acre in mixed use areas at or near those intersections of County Road 15 and 5. There's also 5 redevelopment areas for a planned overall density of, as stated before, at least 20.4 units per acre of new residential development through 2040. Next slide, please. And you can see those 5 areas of redevelopment identified by the city on this map, which is figure 5 in your staff report. Next slide. Now we're on to the fun stuff. The proposed findings for Spring Park's plan is that the plan conforms to Metropolitan Systems plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local government units and affected jurisdictions. The meeting for the Environment Committee where this goes next is Tuesday, September 22nd, and the full council will consider the item on Wednesday, September 23rd. And the proposed action before you today is to authorize the city of Spring Park to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city to, when available, provide to the council the date the city adopted the final local water management plan, as well as a copy of the final adopted local water management plan, and implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecasts and water supply. And again, it's I can answer what questions I have. I'm happy to answer them. And I want to extend a thank you to the staff that aren't able to be with us tonight for their work on the plan. Thank you.
Great. Are there questions from committee members? Anyone? Hearing and seeing no one indicating a question or a comment, Is there a motion to approve?
Cummings moves.
Cummings moves. Is there a second?
Chambliss seconds.
Chambliss seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Vento. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carried. And thanks to Dan and Nate, even though they couldn't be with us tonight. Again, it's an extraordinary amount of work and it is invaluable. So thank you. Our next item on the agenda is 2020-232 Parks and Trails Legacy Signature Authorization. Nicole Clapp is going to present that this evening, or this afternoon, excuse me. I'm jumping time here.
Hi, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Nicole Clapp, and I'm the Senior Grants Administrator for Regional Parks and Community Development. So the Finance and Admin Unit in Community Development on behalf of Regional Parks is requesting that the Metropolitan Council authorize the Community Development Director to execute grant agreements to pass through state fiscal year 2021 Parks and Trails Legacy Funds. The agreements will go to the 10 regional park implementing agencies according to the formula defined in Minnesota Statute Section 85.53. Funding for these grants is provided, like I said, by the Parks and Trails Legacy Fund and is provided at 100% state share with no local match required, and will be used to fund the list of projects approved by the elected representatives of each of the Metropolitan Parks implementing agencies to support parks and trails that are part of the regional park system. The funding associated with this item was approved by the Council on July 22nd through the 2020 Unified Budget Amendment, Business Item 2020-182. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Questions? Anyone? Okay, hearing no questions or comments, is there a motion to approve, please?
So moved. This is Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Atlas Ingebrigtsen moves. Is there a second?
Wolf seconds.
Wolf seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Michelle, we're ready for a roll call.
Yes, Chair Vento, thank you. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you. Our next item, thank you, Nicole. Our next item is 2020-235, the 2021 Public Housing Agency Plan Approval. Terry Smith is with us for this presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. For the record, my name is Terry Smith, Director of the Council Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and I am here today to present for your approval the 2021 Public Housing Agency Plan. Next slide, please. As you will recall, the Public Housing Agency Plan is a document that's required for any agency in the country that's administering a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher program. Is that me squeaking?
I'm not hearing it.
Okay, good. So it's required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for any agency administering the Housing Choice Voucher program. What you're really approving today and the subject of today's approval is the proposed 21 agency plan. This is a document that's submitted each year and details the strategies for meeting the needs of low-income persons within the region in the coming year. An attachment to the plan becomes, the administrative plan becomes an attachment to the plan, and this includes the regulatory and discretionary program policies for the administration of the voucher program. So you're approving both of these documents today. Next slide, please. one of the components of the PHA plan and one of the requirements is that we provide you all, as well as the public and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Authority, with some updates on progress and meeting our goals from the previous year's plan. So on the next two slides, I'll talk about what those goals were and then just give you a few examples of the work we did in 2020 to help meet these goals, and then some of the things we'll be doing into 2021. One of the goals in our PHA plan is to maintain and increase the availability of affordable housing and be responsible stewards of financial resources. There are several things, so hopefully you've all had a chance to review the PHA plan in completeness, either as attached to the business item or online. But one of the things we continue to do is work towards receiving a moving to work designation through the federal government. And that's a designation that provides tremendous flexibility in the way we administer rent assistance programs, allowing us to waive some of the federal rules and adopt more flexible policies to help us more efficiently serve the low-income persons in the region. One of the other things we did is we continue to apply for new funding and new program opportunities. An example of that is the mainstream vouchers that were awarded to us during 2020. Those are vouchers that serve people living with disabilities that are experiencing homelessness. We were also awarded some additional Veterans Affairs supportive housing vouchers. So those are two examples under that goal. Another goal is to increase assisted housing choice for all residents. Our outreach team, the HRA, has an outreach team of 5 people that continues to conduct regular owner recruitment and retention activities through 2020. It's been more tough in 2020, but we've had some virtual online owner workshops and owner briefings that have been real successful, and we'll continue some recruitment activities into 2021. We have a goal to encourage movement to regions in the area with less than 20% poverty. We continue through our outreach team to provide mobility counseling services, to educate program participants and encourage movement to resource-rich areas. So for families that want to make a move, the goal is for us to help them make that move a success. We will apply for mobility demonstration funds when those become available, and they are now hot off the press. HUD is offering $50 million in mobility demonstration funds. I'll be coming before you on September 21st for a discussion and a board resolution on that, allowing us to apply for some of those funds. Next slide, please, Greg. Another goal is to administer programs that encourage integrated settings for persons with disabilities. We have a number of programs that serve people living with disabilities. One of them, again, includes the mainstream vouchers. We now have 204 of those vouchers. A portion of those are administered in conjunction with the Metro Transit Homeless Action Team. We also continue to administer the Bridges Rental Assistance Program. That's a state-funded program that provides rent assistance to people living with disabilities, primarily serious and persistent mental illness. We have a goal in the previous plan year and also for 2021 to contribute to the goal of ending long-term homeless for families and individuals in our region. We continue our partnership with the Metro Transit Homeless Action Team, providing rent subsidy to people experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, and using the transit system as temporary shelter. We continue to explore other rent assistance programs or other opportunities and partnerships to stabilize families that are experiencing homelessness, including partnering with schools and other providers. There's an administrative plan change that I'm proposing this evening, and I'll talk about one of those initiatives on the next slide. And then we continue to promote self-sufficiency and helping families stabilize, focusing on person-centered approaches. This photo on this slide is a picture of our outreach team. So we have 3 senior outreach coordinators, 1 outreach coordinator, and an associate outreach coordinator. But this entire team is working to help stabilize families, helping them achieve self-sufficiency where possible, and helping them with success once their voucher is placed. And then one of our goals is to research and explore a home ownership program. That was a goal we had last year which meaning, the goal for this year in 2020, and due to COVID, that sort of got delayed, but it's on our work plan for this year. We may get to it before the end of the year, but it remains a goal for next year as well. Next slide, please. There are two main proposed changes that I'm recommending today in the administrative plan document, and one of these is on this slide here. You will remember, hopefully, the conversation we had on July 20th about this proposed waiting list preference. The Homework Starts with Home program is a partnership with Suburban Ramsey Family Collaborative and Solid Ground. That partnership received a grant from Minnesota Housing to provide rent assistance and supportive services to underserved students in suburban Ramsey schools, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning and intersex students and families who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. The Homework Starts with Home program is an 18-month rent subsidy, so it's a temporary rent subsidy program. Under that program, families would no longer be assisted after that 18-month period, and we all know that it takes longer than 18 months to stabilize families that are experiencing homelessness. What this proposed policy change would do, it would provide a preference so that the families that are transitioning from the Homework Starts with Home program could transition to the Housing Choice Voucher program. So the Metro HRA would give families transitioning out of that program a voucher if they still needed rent assistance. This would provide the families with continued housing stability, and the program partners, so the Suburban Family Collaborative and Solid Ground, would continue to provide services to the families for a 2-year period after they transition to the voucher program. We had quite an extensive conversation on July 20th with you all in terms of the number of vouchers to commit to this program and this partnership. My initial proposal was to commit 15 vouchers. And then after a very lengthy discussion and some comments from you all, I'm proposing to change that now tonight to 20 vouchers. And currently there are 26 families enrolled in that program, and the 18-month period for each of those families expires at different times. Some council members requested full 26 vouchers. Some said, let's start with 15 vouchers and start out small. I thought 20 was a good compromise, knowing that not all 26 families are going to transition at the same time. So these vouchers would be committed in 2021 and then beyond, assuming they continue to get their Homework Starts with Home funding. I wonder, Madam Chair, if you want me to pause there for questions before I go to the next change.
Sure. Are there any questions regarding the Homework Starts with Home and previous portions of Ms. Smith's presentation? Anyone?
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
Go ahead, Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
So thank you. Terry, thanks so much for your work and the presentation. I really appreciate how clear everything is that you are providing and put together, and also how you walk us through this over the meeting so that it's big things are taken down into bite-sized chunks so that we can take them in. And comparatively to where I was last year learning about these things, I'm not feeling nearly as overwhelmed by the details. But one of the things I am curious about is we're hearing so much about the exponential growth of people experiencing homelessness due to COVID-19. In my day-to-day job at Youth Prize and Hunger, and if we know that it's just going to get worse, and we're dealing with unseasonably coldness right now, but the cold is coming soon. Has there been any conversation about emergency housing supports, or is there any groups that you're a part of, or is the governor's office talking about the plans for stemming the tide of homelessness that that is growing right now due to COVID-19 and the economic situation we're in?
So, Madam Chair, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, thank you for the question. There are numerous efforts going on in the region right now and conversations about, number one, the increase in homelessness as a result of COVID. There are some resources out there. Some of the counties have some emergency resources. Minnesota Housing, as you likely know, has launched the CHAP program, which is COVID housing assistance payments. And so that's funding that all the region's residents can access for either home ownership purposes or rental purposes, to provide emergency type assistance. So it's not ongoing rental assistance, but it's one-time funding to help people that have fallen behind on their bills due to COVID reasons. There's a new use of Medicaid dollars that went into effect July 1st, and many of you likely know this, but a new eligible expense under Medicaid is housing navigation services. So it can be used for housing search assistance, post-move case management and stability for people that are people with disabilities that have moved into a new place and need some housing stability services. I'm part of several committees in the region, including through the Interagency Council on Homelessness, where these conversations are happening. And, you know, the reality is there's not enough affordable housing any way you slice it, dice it, for people. And so this is just one small piece of what we can do to assist people and students who are experiencing homelessness. But we know that it will make a small dent in the problem.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Terry. I just am wondering if there's any new concerted effort to kind of track what's happening with homelessness, and for the Met Council to play a role in responding to that, is specific to COVID. Is there a group that's getting together to talk about that, that's coordinated on the state level or regionally? That is kind of what I was looking for.
So, Madam Chair and Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, I have a meeting, I think it's next week, with the Interagency Council on Homelessness, and you may or may not know this, but back in 2019, there was a design team of, I suppose there were 75 people on this committee, made up of service providers, counties, other government agencies, people with lived experience, and came up with a prioritized list of recommendations to help move the needle on people experiencing homelessness. That group has been reconvened, and there's also a policy action group that I'm part of that was started as part of this as a result of COVID. So the conversations are happening, and the council is part of the conversations. I don't know if that helps.
Chair, Terry, thank you. It does. If there's things that we can do to further assist or support, I just like getting an update about that and getting a chance to know. We've served 1 million meals through our organization alone in the last 5 months, and we're seeing firsthand what's coming, and it's frankly terrifying. So I'm just trying to see what we can do to get ahead of what's coming for this winter. And so thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen. And Terry, thanks for your work on this program. I mean, I really, really appreciate all the great work you're doing in, you know, constrained environments to make the most out of the funding we get. And, you know, everybody is worthy of a home. So it is difficult with, you know, not having enough money and not having the places we need, but your work and your team's work is so commendable. And I'm really proud of what you're doing. And I like that you continue to push for changes and partnerships that will make a difference. To the question about homelessness, my question is this. is that Kathy Tenbrook's group, Terry? Yeah. And also, I read an article, or I don't know. There's so much information out there. I think it was in the news, but anyways, it's St. Paul is tracking homeless encampments, and they've doubled, I think, within a given span within the last year. And is our research team able to track that, or is it through our partners that are doing counts? I know there's the homeless count that happens, once a year, but I think, while we're in the housing space, as we know, we're also in the transit space, and we're nowhere. I mean, problem is so now beyond what even we were facing last year, and even with the governor's initiative to end homelessness, and with the focus on the winter, you had a lot of corporate partners join in last December. A lot of us were there at that, but I'm wondering, are we at Met Council advising and working with transit on the potential, explosion of people that are going to be desperate again, but in larger numbers?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Johnson, a couple of things. I don't know about any statewide count that's happening now. The annual homeless point in time count happens in January of each year, so that's coming up. I would say the Metro Transit Homeless Action Team and the Metro Transit Police are closer to some of the encampment issues, and the HAT team and the Metro HRA outreach team work very, very closely together. The HRA was awarded an additional 46 mainstream vouchers as a result of COVID. So they're out of COVID funds to provide additional housing opportunities for people experiencing homelessness in this COVID period. And right before this meeting, I was just reading a new notice. HUD is offering some additional housing vouchers for people experiencing homelessness, again, out of the COVID pot of money. So we have the ability to apply for more. And we're using some of those in partnership with the Homeless Action Team. And the reality is some of those people have come from the recent encampments. So if they had been sleeping at a station area, riding the train and using that as a temporary shelter, we have the ability, and people that are engaging with the Homeless Action Team, we have the ability to link them to one of these mainstream vouchers, and we will likely apply for some more. We also have a partnership with Anoka and Hennepin counties to provide some of these new mainstream vouchers for people in those counties that are experiencing homelessness. So we do have some additional resources. Again, not everybody's ready for a voucher in independent living, but for those that do, we will, be there to help them get to housing stability. But it's one resource, and recognizing that there are lots of teams working towards this. I don't know if Director Barajas wants to add anything about what other state agencies are doing. I know MnDOT is working closely with some encampment issues on their property, but I don't know if Lisa wants to add something else.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Council members, I think Terry's covered everything that I would have said and more. And I would also offer that I know that the counties play a very close role in supporting local efforts around homelessness with their shelter space, and also keeping track of things, as well as a variety of other entities, the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and their various departments and park and rec boards as well, of really kind of keeping track of what's going on and where, and communicating with one another. There are lots of kind of sub-regional teams working on various and different parts of the region on both finding folks, connecting folks, and keeping them connected to services. Moving folks is tough, and keeping them connected to the services they need is even tougher when encampments are moved or dispersed.
This has been an excellent presentation. I live in the East Metro area, and I have seen a significant increase in just my day-to-day running errands, that type of thing. There's a pretty good sized encampment, not just west of Metro State on Mounds Boulevard. And early on, I noticed families there. It's my understanding that there's been every effort made to help get those families into sheltered housing. I also know that a number of school districts have been working very hard on it. Councilmember Lindstrom and I have participated in the Roseville area schools superintendents quarterly meetings with elected officials, and he regularly updates on what that district is doing to assist families who are dealing with housing insecurity as well as food insecurity. And boy, whatever we can do, getting a hold of those additional HUD vouchers, anything we can do, I don't know what to say, but definitely. And I'll go out and buy the most durable mask I can find so that I can help with that count in January. Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. I wonder about, I mean, I know for many of us, we also have been receiving emails from constituents around what are we doing to really look at homelessness in an innovative and new ways and to really be action oriented. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if it's something where, and I know Robert's not here today, but where we could have a conversation or an update from the governor's office about what is the statewide plan and how might, on a regional basis, we do things differently or support things in a different way. Is there an opportunity for us to innovate beyond just the voucher program? Are there other things that we can or should be doing, or even just a brainstorming session around that? Just an idea.
I would encourage Director Barajas and Ms. Smith to take that and deal with it. I think it's a great idea. I actually think it might be a good idea for a committee of the whole, because I would imagine every council member is getting questions about this issue. I was going to save this till the end, but Councilmember Lilligren is not with us this evening because he's working with his community and in Minneapolis, trying to help the encampment that recently moved back to Hiawatha. And so as we speak, our dear council colleague, Robert, is out there doing good work. So, and it's up to all of us. So I think that's a great suggestion, and I'll leave it to Terry and Lisa to take a look at it and perhaps consult with Mary and with Chair Zelli about how best to address it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Hi, this is
Wendy?
Councilmember Wolf.
Yes,
I just wanted to weigh in that although we administer Section 8 vouchers for portions of the region, we are not a housing agency, and so we don't have the flexibility that counties and other cities have in terms of dealing with those sorts of issues. Our budget is very restricted on what we can spend it on in state statute. So I would be I'm supportive of the continuing work that our staff is doing to engage with other programs and assist people in finding those other programs and in applying for whatever we can from HUD. But I would caution my colleagues on mission creep, trying to do something that is not within our sphere of work, and we don't have the ability to look at it from all sides like counties do, where they have those other resources and can work at things holistically. We don't have that. We can cooperate and be innovative with partners, but we can't take over other people's work because we don't have the legal right to do so.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf. I think that's wise advice, and definitely think that's something we need to keep in mind. I think the idea of being well-informed, though, will help us be a good partner. So maybe we can honor our mission limitations, but also be well-informed and able to respond both to potential partners as well as to our to the communities we work with and to the many people who may be contacting us, either as individuals or representatives of organizations. So thank you. That's wise advice.
Chair, I just want,
Councilmember, yeah, go ahead.
Chambliss, thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, I appreciate the dialogue that we're having around housing and how we can support. Yeah, we can't be all things to everyone, but as a regional planning body and people, an organization who people look up to plan and lead, and looking at our regional economic framework, I would say that this fits in with that. We don't necessarily always have to spend dollars or provide dollars to be supportive, to be a vocal partner in the region. And, I definitely would be on board with, signing my name to say that, as a Metropolitan Council member, we care about what happens in our region in terms of housing, which is why we have housing vouchers to administer. And we understand that that's only a small part of the picture. Anything that we can do to highlight that and say, yes, we're in support of reducing homelessness and increasing affordable housing, and highlighting what the issues are, because we do have a lot of that information. I think that will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Smith, do you want to continue, please?
Sure. So next slide, please. So the second revision in the administrative plan I'm proposing today is to make some changes in the way we offer and award project-based vouchers. These revisions are being made based on previous discussions with you all on July 20th, but then also a lengthy conversation with the Housing Policy Work Group. And the revisions also align much better with the Council's housing policy priorities and the Livable Communities Fund Distribution Plan. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you will see the revised project-based voucher award criteria. Hopefully it looks somewhat familiar based on our July 20th conversation, but I'll go through quickly. I'm not going to read word for word, but project readiness is now listed in more of a broader sense compared to the previous criteria, and that's worth 15 points. The extent to which the project provides and preserves housing types that contribute to a full range of affordable housing choices, while also continuing taking into consideration both areas of concentrated poverty and areas of affluence. The areas of affluence is new, and really, as I had discussions with you all, we wanted to include it in other parts of the income spectrum. So not only are we including areas of concentrated poverty, but also areas of concentrated wealth. The highest point award category goes to projects that integrate housing with tenant services for specialized populations, such as those experiencing homelessness. This is the highest scoring category for the recent RFP that we did for project-based vouchers, and the projects that included support services for specialized populations tended to score the highest. The extent to which the project supports a mix of income, so within the project itself, is worth 5 points. Supporting projects for larger families needing 3 or more bedrooms continues to be a priority under this new structure. Maximizing connections between housing, jobs, recreation, and services counts for a potential of 15 points. And then lastly, the extent of local support. And we included some broader language here to consider partnerships with public-private partnerships, nonprofit sectors, and local community for 10 points. So these are what I'm proposing tonight as the revised criteria. Next slide, please.
Councilmember Chambliss has a question or a comment.
Thank you for the review of the new award criteria. I think it's good. The second option, providing and preserving housing types, where it says improved housing choice in an area of affluence. I'm wondering if it might be a little bit more clear in terms of the goal of targeting areas of influence if we said that we're looking for opportunity in the area of influence, or do we need to say affordable again? Because we can say that you have a choice in the area of affluence, but if you can't afford it or attain it, it may not be as helpful. So I would recommend adding either affordable or opportunity in relation to area of affluence.
Madam Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, it's a really good suggestion. In fact, the word affordable before areas of concentrated poverty, where it says preservation of affordable units in areas of concentrated poverty, was an addition after our last conversation. So it does, that you say that, it probably is equally important if we added or improved affordable housing in areas of affluence. So I'm happy to make that change, and I think we can do that in an amended motion if council members are supportive of it.
Thank you. Great idea. Thank you, Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to amend it to say, I would say, or improved housing choice and opportunity in an area of affluence.
But do you want the word affordable in there also?
Well, one or the other. I mean, if the other council members are feeling like saying affordable gets to it more directly, and I think it does get it to it more directly, then yeah, let's put it in there twice, because when you add the or to it, it could be looked at as a completely different option.
I think affordable is clearer and more consistent with the wording we've been using. I think opportunity kind of leaves it to what kind of opportunity. So, or improved affordable housing choice in an area of affluence, I think would be more consistent with the way we've been stating it.
Okay.
Does that sound all right? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support that. And Terry, I know you'll continue to go through the rest of the presentation, and I think what we could do is just, once we get to the end of it, make a motion with that language then incorporated in the main motion, so that we don't have to dispense with an amendment without a motion on the floor right now, if that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Sense.
Thank you.
Perfect sense. Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. That's what we'll do. Okay, Ms. Smith.
Okay, next slide, please, which is the last slide. The Public Housing Agency plan with the attachments is due to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on October 15th. The document will go to the full council on September 23rd. So lastly, before you today, the action is that the Metropolitan Council approve the 2021 Public Housing Agency plan, including changes to the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, authorize the Metropolitan Council Chair to execute the required certifications, and then to direct staff to submit the final plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions that haven't been answered.
Are there any more questions or comments before we entertain a motion? Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. Terry, thank you for this, and Lisa, Terry, and your staff just really extend my thanks. I think that this presentation really illustrates that this is a living, breathing document that can change with the times, that can address challenges that we face. No one could have anticipated that we would have COVID and its aftermath and the civil unrest and all of the attendant consequences of what's going on in our communities currently. And I think that these changes are really, really important to do the best that we can. There are never going to be enough resources to address all of the challenges, but I think that these changes are crucial, and I think they're critical, especially with regard to the various populations that they speak to. So I really, really thank you for all of the work. It is tremendously complex, and you do such a wonderful job, and your staff does such a great job. And also, I really appreciate that you take the input from council members and from the work group and so forth, and then roll that into the plan going forward to reflect what our values are and where we want to place emphasis. So thank you to you and your staff for all the work that you do and for this presentation. Really, really helpful.
Councilmember Lindstrom.
Well, thanks, Madam Chair. I just also wanted to note that I was appreciative of how this was taken to the Resident Advisory Board. And it seemed that they were, they also approved of these changes. And I see that you ran by a lot of the new forms and new calculators on what the rent might be, and just kind of ran it by them to make sure everything was understandable. So good job there. If memory serves, last year, Terry, there were a number of federal required changes to our plan. I think like something like 4 or 5 requirements that HUD was requiring us to do, but there are no HUD requirements this time around. Is that right?
So Madam Chair and Councilmember Lindstrom, that's correct. We subscribe to a service, an administrative plan service, and through Nan McCain Associates, which is an industry leader across the country. And so we get template documents from them once a year that outlines some of those federal changes. And it just came last week. So those changes are not incorporated here. When we do our next admin plan revision, we'll have to do some admin plan revisions soon regarding the Moving to Work program. And so when we do that, we can incorporate some of those canned changes, but there's nothing real substantial.
Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. Thanks, that's helpful. It's been about a year since we've implemented the minimum rent requirements, and I'm just wondering how that's going. $50, I believe, is what we settled on. Thanks.
So, council members, my dog's having a fit upstairs because he's locked upstairs and he knows I'm down here. So if you hear him crying and barking between presentations, I'm going to open the door because he's driving me crazy. But the minimum rent. So I was going to go into all this today, and I, for whatever reason, decided not to. Well, we adopted 3 substantial changes last year. One was regarding the biennial inspections, expanded biennial inspections. We've done that, and we've even gone further because of COVID. We can't go into units right now. So we're marking lots of them as biennial. The second one was implementation of a minimum rent. And what we had that approved last year in the policy document. And then the third one was small area fair market rents and the implementation of that. We had some resident advisory board meetings scheduled in March to lay out the tools for the implementation of those policies. And then COVID hit. And so we delayed the implementation of small area fair market rents because we did eventually have some online WebEx meetings with the resident advisory board and other voucher holders about small area fair market rents implementation, but we just implemented for July 1st. So that was delayed a few months, and we decided not to implement the minimum rent yet because we were going to implement that too, and then COVID hit, and we thought with all these income changes and all the participants either losing jobs or experiencing reduced employment, now was not the time to implement minimum rent. So it has not been implemented yet. It remains written in the policy such that a time when COVID ends, we could possibly implement it. But we decided the administrative time we would spend reviewing hardship exemptions and families that are experiencing reduced income, it wasn't the time. So it has not been implemented yet.
Good questions. Thank you, Councilmember Lindstrom. Anyone else? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. Terry, thanks again for your work to eventually get us into that pipeline of home ownership for people. I really appreciate that. I'm excited about that. I know with everything we're facing right now, there's just so much on your plate, but I know that'll be another great thing to look forward to as we try to help people that want to own a home get in that direction. It'll really help families, I think, again, with stability and wealth building and all of that. So that's awesome that we're moving in that direction. And then, you know, lastly, on the slide, I've got the presentation up in my email, but on slide 3, where we've got meeting our goals, you know, and I know we set our council goals around housing over a year ago, and maybe this is not the place to put it, but on point number 2, where it says increase assisting housing choice for all residents, and we were really keying in on the apartment owners or the landlords there to expand the pool of places. Is there any statement we should be making about HUD or the federal government reducing access via eligibility or reducing what were protected classes? I'm starting to see things coming out from housing groups nationally that are concerned about the direction the administration may be taking, that is looking to limit who is eligible for programs and support. So I don't know, it just makes me nervous when we're trying, you know, even with limited resources, to make sure that you know, the broadest inclusive language is included for those in need, and that there wouldn't be anything that would prevent people from coming forward who needed help, whether it be sexual orientation or race or disability or anything like that. So I just get a little bit nervous when I, you know, see what we're trying to do, and it's starting to feel like maybe there's a mismatch of direction, but maybe maybe I'm just overly concerned. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, in the roles that we do have authority to play, you know, I think we need to, you know, whether it's via our lobbyists or via our goals, just state the fact that we want inclusivity, equity, and we don't want to move backwards in our work.
Ms. Smith, any comments?
It's a good thought. I think, you know, anytime I'm happy to take a look at additional goals that you would like to see written in future PHA plans, or additional, you know, policy options in an administrative plan. I'm not aware of any federal conversations that are happening on that front. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but so I'd be curious to hear, you know, more about what you're thinking for a goal and what would be around that. And, you know, so we work within the federal parameters. So we must do this in the regulations, but then we have lots of discretion too. And in terms of, you know, if we get moving to work status, then we can change a lot of the rules ourselves, and we have a lot more discretion. So as we work towards achieving a moving to work designation, we'll have more opportunity in you all as policy members, policymakers.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands up. So is there a motion to approve 2020-235, the 2021 Public Housing Agency Plan? We'll get a main motion, and then we will do a motion to amend. So is there a motion to approve the plan as presented?
Point of order, Councilmember or Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think I would just note that you could probably simply just move the motion or the proposed actions and include that. Yep, all in one,
Okay.
so then you don't have to go through it multiple times.
Perfect. I'll do that. I'm not used to that, so that's great. So we're gonna find somebody here to raise their hand and make the motion to approve the 2021 Public Housing Agency Plan with the word affordable housing in the last portion of the line that we discussed. And I think that's Councilmember Chambliss making the motion.
That is correct. I make the motion to approve the proposed actions to approve the 2021 Public Housing PHA Plan, including changes to the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, authorize the Metropolitan Council Chair to execute the required certifications, and direct staff to submit the final plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in relationship to the proposed project-based voucher award criteria. That motion includes amending it to say, or improved affordable housing choice in an area of affluence.
Second by Lee.
Second.
We have a motion by Chambliss and a second by Lee and a third by Lindstrom. Any discussion?
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson. I just want to offer a word of affirmation and support for the comments that Councilmember Committee Member Chambliss shared, both and yourselves around both the need to just be knowledgeable about what's happening and flexible in order to know when we can take steps and when not, but also around the value of having lots of ways that as council members and committee members, we can impact what's happening in our region. So I just wanted to really share an affirmation for that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I'm not seeing any other hands. We have a motion, a second, and a third, and we're ready for roll call.
Thank you, Chair Bento. Atlas Ingebretson. Atlas Ingebretson.
Aye.
Thank
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Bento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries, and we're moving on to the information portion of the agenda. And the first item, ironically enough, is the Edina Affordable Housing Partnership. Ms. Smith, boy, talk about lining up the agenda in a very synchronistic way. Go for it. Ms. Smith?
I was on mute. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now, yes.
Okay. So we have a unique opportunity to develop a partnership with the city of Edina. And so this is an information item here for you today to kind of talk through the concept and the partnership concept with you. And then if there's agreement, then we would come back later date for some action. So next slide, please. So in summary, the city of Edina has approximately $2 million, I think it's $2.3 million, that they have available for a potential affordable housing partnership. The city has interest in purchasing some single family homes, and they have an interest in renting them to low-income families. However, the city does not have the infrastructure in place to operate housing units. So they don't own any housing currently, and so they don't have a way to operate the units. The council has had a relationship with the city of Edina through the operation of the Family Affordable Housing Program. As you know, the council owns 150 units of housing scattered throughout the region for this purpose, and 8 of them are in the city of Edina. So under that partnership, we have a cooperation agreement with the city to operate those units within the city of Edina. We have a property management contract with Kingwood Management to manage and provide all the day-to-day management and maintenance services for those units. So when the city of Edina approached us, we've been having conversations, I would say for 2 years now with the city but they're getting closer to wanting to spend these funds. And so the question came up, is there a way the city could link into our system of operation for the operation of some units that they may purchase? Next slide, please. So as we think about the roles and responsibilities under this partnership, under the council's Metro HRA roles, we would work with the city on developing unit purchase criteria. So they're interested in, what we think on unit size and unit types based on the families that we serve with the voucher program. We would work with the city and then the council's current management company to rehabilitate the houses and bring them up to code. We would attach project-based voucher assistance to the units and then lease them to low-income families on the Metro HRA waiting list. And then we would provide ongoing maintenance and management services through our current property management contract. On the City of Edina side, they would, of course, acquire the houses and pay for the houses, and in cooperation with Metro HRA inspection team and management team and the management company. They would pay for the home renovations. They would lease the houses conceptually to the Metro HRA for $1, each year, and then we would in turn rent them to low-income families. And then they would provide funding for ongoing management and maintenance of the properties. Next slide, please. So as we think about rationale, why would we want to do this, and why do we have interest in developing such a partnership? The council will not need to contribute any funds to this partnership with the exception of minimal staff time. So bringing the units online and setting them up for operation, linking them to the property management company, the Metro HRA staff, me. We've had conversations with our legal counsel already. As I indicated, we have a cooperation agreement with the City of Edina for operation of housing in the city already. So the idea is we could either amend that agreement or enter into a new simple agreement. But the conversation with legal counsel is that we could probably do this without much trouble or much legwork. The partnership would provide additional affordable housing opportunity in the City of Edina for voucher holders. This could be used potentially as a model for other partnerships with other cities. So if this type of model was successful, could we partner with other cities in purchasing additional units? And the idea is the partnership would start with maybe 1 or 2 unit purchases in 2020. So the idea is the city would purchase the units on the open housing market that are for sale, and we would go to the units together, inspect them, see if we think they're good units for families within the city. Talked about focusing on units for larger family sizes, so maybe 3 and 4 bedroom units. Next slide, please. So next steps after I have some discussion with you tonight is that we would obtain approval. The city staff would obtain approval from the city, and then I would obtain approval from the Metropolitan Council. We would enter into the necessary agreements to establish the partnership. There are some logistics to figure out, what type of lease would they use? What are the contract requirements for awarding project-based vouchers and amending the property management agreement? For the FOP units, that the current council-owned housing units, we make a payment in lieu of taxes, so we don't pay property taxes. Would that option be available for the city? And we develop some unit purchase criteria. We do have some criteria that we established when we purchased the Family Affordable Housing Program units, so we could use that as a starting point. And then, the city would purchase units for occupancy by low-income families. And again, they have about 2.3 million available for this purpose. So it would be, a handful of units depending on what the purchase price was. And so this is a, conceptual idea at this point. Without formal approval, the city staff have been to the city council once with an information item. I attended that meeting. The city council members are supportive of it. And so I'm just really bringing it here to get a feel for whether there's support for this type of partnership. And that's all I have for prepared comments, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Ms. Smith, I have a question. Are the current homes and would these future homes be located near transit. Is that one of the requirements, or?
So Councilmember Vento, as we look at the unit purchase criteria, that's one of the things that we will recommend. That was in our unit purchase criteria when we purchased the family affordable housing units, and it seems to be an important amenity to be near transit for voucher holders.
Okay, great.
But you will help, as part of your approval, we will go through that unit purchase criteria.
Great. Questions or Councilmember Chambliss?
Yeah, that kind of answered part of my question. Is the purchase criteria. I also kind of wanted to know how the occupants might be selected. Would it be a lottery system? Has the city of Edina thought about that yet?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, the residents that would occupy the units would be marketed to applicants on the Section 8 waiting list. So on the Section 8 waiting list already. So if, for example, we have a 3-bedroom available in Edina, we'll go down our existing list to find families that would be eligible for a 3-bedroom, reach out to them, see if there's interest. Eventually, when we'd reopen our FOP waiting list again, we would market those units as part of that. So people would be able to express an interest in that program when we reopen that waiting list.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. In general, I really like this concept. I think that it offers some opportunities to expand what we can do with our vouchers, and I think it addresses also moving into areas of affluence where it can be a little bit more challenging. I like the idea of the 3-bedroom. I think that's something that's pretty challenging for us to find and come up with. So I think, it needs further vetting, but in general, I think that it extends our reach and is really, really helpful. It's very challenging. Every community has challenges with how they're going to meet their affordable goals. And I think this is a win-win. I think it helps with the city of Edina, and I think it also helps the Met Council come up with extending our reach with all of our stated goals. So I really like this. And I think as a potential model for working with other communities, that is great. And we keep talking about partnerships, and this to me is an example of just a great partnership around housing that can be a real winner for everyone, and especially for those who are looking for additional housing resources. So thank you for this. I'll look forward to seeing how this unfolds.
Councilmember Lindstrom.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. This does seem like a great partnership. But they have the money, but they don't have the infrastructure. We've got the infrastructure, but we don't have the money. So this seems like a win-win chocolate and peanut butter combination approach. So I'm all in favor of it. And if I recall correctly, City of Edina has a requirement that new development must be something like 10% affordable or 20% affordable, depending on something. Or developers can buy out of that. And so that's probably how they filled up this $2.3 million kitty, and they will keep filling that up in the future when they have future development. And so I'm sure you're thinking about this, Terry, as more of a long-term approach that will start with the 2.3, but if it's working well, that it could be a continual partnership for years into the future. Is that correct?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Lindstrom, your assessment of where the money came from is accurate, so nice job. And secondly, I think there is a potential for a long-term strategy. One of the questions Director Barajas and I were talking about is whether we should be charging a fee And, you know, it's easy to absorb this into our infrastructure and do a little legwork up front for a handful of units. But if in concept, this type of partnership expands to other communities and expands to lots of units, then there will likely be some compensation reimbursement need for, you know, council staff time. But to sort of test and do sort of a pilot thing, I think it's very doable to absorb it into our current staffing capacity.
Ms. Smith, have other cities expressed an interest in this yet? Okay.
No.
Curious. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Terry, do we know, is the city of Edina working with nonprofits or service providers in the area to assist with other needs that people might have once they locate in the units? I just know in Plymouth, you know, we have our own HRA, and I just know as we were trying to work, you know, we would again try to make sure all those services were there, whether it be the homework helpers or people who might need special counseling or whatever. Do we know if those might be something that we could see in the future?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Johnson, not that I know of, but it's a good question that I should be asking, so I'll add it to my list.
Madam Chair and Terry, thank you, because you know it just helps people be that much more successful. We all know that. So, you know, as we put this kind of pilot program together, whatever we're calling it, learning and building in best practices. And I do like the idea of capturing some of the money and bringing it back for administration. I think it, you know, there are many programs. We know that there's a bit of that for the entity that is administering things. So I think that might be wise so that we don't find ourselves in our own tight financial box, you know, slowly eroding our own funds to do the work we're doing.
Other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Wolf.
Yes, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. I would agree with Councilmember Johnson. I think that looking in the future at an administrative fee is a good idea because some parts of the region do their own, and we don't want to be using our property tax dollars on the entire region for a program for one part of the region. It makes sense to put the cost where the program is and not burden our other programs. So thank you.
Excellent point, Councilmember Wolf.
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. I just want to quick question. We, you know, historically we've talked about the limitations we have on us on not being able to add units to our program or add money to our housing program. So this seems like a great model and is exactly the kind of thing that I'm hoping to hear about, or opportunities to come out through other ideas in that, going back to our previous conversation about brainstorming and informing ourselves about what are the opportunities out there. I just am wondering and I agree with the idea about the administrative fee, also from just a sustainability perspective. I think that's very important to have a program that can maintain and endure. And so I'm just curious, what could be the capacity? Is there conversations about what this potentially could look like? And would this be something that where we can't take in dollars from other sources for our voucher program? Is this an opportunity where we could be as successful as our capacity to raise funds allows us to be? Or are there limitations on this in the same way as we have with our voucher program?
Ms. Smith?
Chair Vento and Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, I think it's a policymaker decision whether we want to charge a fee for these services. In my initial conversations with legal, it seems like it's something we can do. But because this is brand new and we haven't had a partnership, I haven't done a whole ton of analysis on what the capacity would capacity could be for, absorbing this internally, but I think it's something we need to think about and talk about, and it will be a policymaker decision.
The more important part of my question was around, is this something where we are only held back in scope and scale by the amount of dollars we can raise or communities who want to participate, or are there other limitations on a pilot like this? And I agree with not charging an administrative fee during a piloting stage. I want to be clear about that.
It's a good question. I don't believe there are restrictions at this point, but it's something I really need to think about before I can give an intelligent answer. So it's a question I should be asking our legal counsel.
Thank you. That's very fair. But that's also very exciting too.
It is. It is very exciting. Other questions or comments? Seeing no one expressing a desire to speak, I want to thank you, Ms. Smith. You've provided a lot of information tonight, and we thank you. You and your team do great work, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck with your dog. I've got one here that's keeping me busy too.
He's at my feet now, so he's happy.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the second item under information, the public engagement approach on the draft regional parks policy plan amendment. We have with us this evening Tracy Kinney and Amanda Lovely.
Chair, council members, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Tracy Kinney, Senior Planner in Parks, and for this presentation, I am accompanied by Amanda Lovely, Senior Parks Ambassador. The next item before you is an information item on the public engagement approach for the draft Regional Parks Policy Plan Amendment. Next slide, please. As you know, the draft amendment to the Regional Parks Policy Plan is open for public comment from August 26th through October 30th, 2020. The public comment period is of the draft amendment is an opportunity to include advice from residents across the region and ensure that the plan increases equitable access to the regional park system. The Metropolitan Council's Community Development Committee, yourself, and the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission have provided feedback that underserved populations should be prioritized when planning for the regional park system. Council staff is excited to advance this guidance. Staff proposes to pilot a new engagement process that seeks to reach these critical residents through organizations connected to parks and to youth. This extended engagement will be paired with the wealth of resources the council typically brings to invite the general public for all public comment periods. Key to this engagement process is extending existing and building new relationships. We know that during this time of COVID, organizations are stretched thin and may not have the capacity to respond to cold calls. We have a running start on this. Both the Youth and Park Study and the Parks Ambassador have relationships with a number of organizations in the region, but we know we need more. That is where we hope MPOSC, CDC, and the implementing agencies could partner with us. To broaden our reach and ensure all residents have an opportunity to participate, we propose your help with sharing information or hosting listening sessions with organizations that you are engaged with or feel are important for us to reach out to. I'll discuss all of the tools at our disposal and how easy this could be if you are interested later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Here is our schedule for the public engagement process. Working from left to right on the screen, there are 4 phases. The phases include invite, engage, refine, and approvals. We are currently in the invite stage. That entails reaching out, building awareness of the website, and building a social media presence with organizations, MPOSC, CDC, and the implementing agencies. I am here today to invite your support and partnership on this pilot engagement effort. Later this month, we will start the engage phase. This phase runs from September through the end of the public comment period. on October 30th. Staff will be sharing the main stories related to the draft amendment, participating in a variety of listening sessions, and encouraging video submissions for our video challenge. In October, staff will be back to update you on the public comments to date and hold the public hearing at your October 19th CDC meeting. In November, we enter the refine stage. We will complete our compilation and analysis of the public's ideas and propose revisions to the addendum. Staff will come before you with an update on the public's comments and proposed refinements. And then finally, in December, we will enter the approval phase with the guidance from MPOSC and yourself, CDC. Staff will revise the draft amendment and develop a business item that will come before you and the full council for approval. Thereafter, the addendum will be in effect. Next slide, please. So the outreach objectives that we seek to achieve with this pilot engagement process includes building awareness of the regional park system, providing an entry point for people new to engaging with the work of the Metropolitan Council, investing in youth civic participation capacity, inviting constituents to dream about the future regional park system, seeking and listening to advice on the changes of the draft amendment to the policy plan, and fostering relationships and encouraging participation in this public comment process, as well as the upcoming 2024 Regional Parks Policy Plan update. Next slide, please. So here are all the ways the public can participate in this process, expanding on engagement, on the engagement that we conducted during the 2018 policy plan update. We have included a survey and a video challenge. Both will be widespread across social media. Additionally, the website and survey have been translated into 3 commonly used languages, and they're up on the website right now, so go check it out. It's policyplan.com at the Met Council website. The next slide, please. So here are some of the existing relationships. Council staff are reaching out to groups we have or would like relationships with through the Youth in Parks study and the Parks Ambassador initiatives. Here are some of our current groups where we are doing more extensive and creative outreach to intentionally bring diverse voices into the policy plan amendment discussion. And now Amanda Lovely will discuss the main stories of the draft amendment that council staff would love advice on. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Chair and Council members. I'm Amanda Lovely, the Parks Ambassador at the Met Council. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about the 4 major topic areas that the staff have been focusing our engagement on in the Parks Plan Policy Update. We've worked hard on the update to make our content plain language, fun, and more participatory than in the past. We're hoping that it's easier for people to connect with the content, participate, and hopefully raise awareness of the regional park system in the process, which is always one of our main goals. These 4 topics for the focus area are also going to be used for our video challenge. I'm now going to share a bit more on each of them. Next slide, please. Growing the system is our first topic area. Following the record use of the regional park system in 2019, the council plans to add parks and trails to the system. People use the region's parks for connecting with family, building friends, community, picnicking, camping, hiking, biking, and being in nature, among other popular activities. As you can see below are the survey questions that will show up on our survey and that you can also answer through the video challenge. Next slide, please. Our next topic area is equitable access. The regional park system will gain a new type of special recreation feature called a bridging facility with this update. The goal of this facility will be to ensure our parks encourage broader participation by people of different races, ethnicities, national origins, ages, abilities, and income. This update will also consider establishing a water trail park to provide safe places for people to paddle creeks and rivers in the region. Again, below are the survey questions that people can engage with. Next slide, please. Our third topic area is reconsidering history. The regional parks and trails are lands that the Anishinaabe people and the Dakota people cared for and called home. The lands hold great historical, spiritual, and personal significance for the original stewards and tribal nations. the Metropolitan Council, in partnership with the 10 regional park implementing agencies, proposed to explore honoring this history through land acknowledgement and broader regional conversation. Below are the survey questions for this topic area. And next slide, please. So our fourth and last topic area is climate resilience. Trees are the lungs of the atmosphere, cleaning the air and pollutants for a more resilient future climate. Parkland plays a significant role in mitigating climate change, keeping us healthy, protecting water, providing habitats, moderating temperature, and teaching future generations about nature. By expanding the regional park system, we are fighting pollution, managing water, and providing critical habitats. And here are the survey questions that'll again be on that survey that is up and ready for you to fill out and share, along with on our video challenge. I'm now going to pass it back to Tracy, who will talk about our request for your help in spreading the word about ways to participate with the organizations and groups that you already have strong relationships with. Next slide, and Tracy.
Thanks, Amanda. So by now, you may have a sense of the overall plan and our request to you. Here before you are the ways we can creatively support you in helping reach out to your relationships. There are 3 major ways, including sharing information to build awareness, leading a staff-created presentation at one of your existing meetings, or requesting council staff to share an interactive virtual presentation at a meeting you host. Council staff will provide some media tools to MPOSC and CDC members by email next week. The tools will include content and ways to share it. Next slide, please. One of the ways we and you can build awareness is to promote the video challenge. We are inviting a 1 to 2 minute video from residents, primarily youth, to answer one of the questions in the survey. Each participant will be awarded a gift card for their participation. At the end of the engagement process, a compilation of the videos will be on the website. Ellie Huhulian and Sarah Gong, our parks interns, will tell you more about this in their video. Greg, can you get the video going, please?
Yeah, it'll be a minute. I'm gonna have to change the setting to get the audio.
Hey, while we're waiting, can I say something?
Yes, Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. I'm just really excited about this engagement push, and I'm excited about you providing the challenge to us as CDC committee members and council members to help with this engagement. Looking forward to the video and the tools, and I'm just really excited. I especially was interested in the investment in youth civic engagement, because I think that's how we're going to make real change in engaging the BIPOC community and our youth. Starting out young, I think, is going to encourage people to travel to our regional parks and enjoy it. And I think we're going to get a lot of good ideas. I mean, my brain was just, I was already brainstorming, you know, what ideas could get people more engaged. So I'm looking forward to this process. I'm wondering how much money do organizations and partners have to do this engagement? So that's kind of a question.
Chair, council members, thank you for that question. Lisa Braha might be able to speak more to that, but currently we are considering that. There is not a plan in place to provide a stipend at this moment, but it has been considered. Lisa, do you have any thoughts on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilmember Chambliss. That's a really great question. At this point, it wasn't budgeted in our 2020 budget for additional stipend support for engagement on this. We have in the past across the council, not just in community development, provided direct support to nonprofit organizations and other community-based organizations to assist with engagement. And as we look forward to our regional planning process, I know that is something that we're looking for in our broader engagement strategies. On a smaller amendment like this, we were looking for other ways to engage that don't tax local government, or I'm sorry, local organizations' time as much as we would expect that in a larger planning process to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Thank you. That's really good to know, because I know that if it is some broader engagement, or we're going to have some numeric goals that we're trying to hit, providing support to staff resources and to build capacity is important. So thank you for that.
Other comments or questions? Greg, is the video ready? Oh,
I'm going to try it and see. I'm going to see if it'll play the audio. Let me know if you hear it. Are you hearing music?
no.
Shoot.
We can see music.
Memorize the script,
Yeah.
Chair. I would have been able to
Sing along.
done a dubbed version for you all, but I have not. Maybe I'll. It is a great video. I think it's the contest is a really good idea. Just a quick, if I could share update while Greg is still working on that. From MPOS was super supportive of the strategy, and we've been talking and working really hard around how do we get these types of engagements done at a scale that community can really respond to. And my dog really wants to say hi to another dog right now. Sorry, that's the whimpering you're hearing in the background. But so I do want to just say I think we're really in a good place. I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Chambliss' concepts. It does cost organizations to help organize and get response, and we've had some pretty across other work non-representative participation in our survey. So we know it's so important for that not to be the case with all of our work, but particularly this work. So I think the staff's done a really good job at thinking creatively and also putting things in a scale that young people and people who may not be used to responding do, but we're really counting on the grassroots efforts of all council members, our friends and family, to encourage folks and diverse as possible response from folks, especially of communities that are underrepresented, like those experiencing physical disabilities or different gender identities, and communities of color, including the Black, Indigenous folks. Greg, was that enough time?
Hey, Linnea, I owe you one. You see, I think I got it. So thanks for chiming in like that. So if you guys are ready, I can start it.
Go ahead. That's great.
All right. Are you hearing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, and welcome to one of your regional parks.
Right now, the Regional Parks Policy Plan is being updated.
The policy plan outlines the future for the regional park system. The Regional Parks Policy Plan is a living, breathing document.
And we want to hear from you as to why regional parks are important. One of the ways you can do that is by submitting a short video of yourself responding to one of the questions listed on our survey. Just film a quick 30-second to minute-long response on your phone or computer, reflecting on the topic or question you choose.
These focus on four primary categories: adding parks and trails, reconsidering history, equitable access, environment, climate, and the parks,
or sharing more broadly what your dream regional parks and trail system would look and feel like.
Everyone enjoys the parks in different ways, and we want to hear your story and your voice through this video.
El sistema de parques regionales de mis sueños incluirá muchos animales, cascadas y paisajes naturales, y se sentiría como una atmósfera amigable.
I think that it's important that park spaces are accessible to all people, regardless of what they're interested in doing in the park.
Land acknowledgement is how you start to inform the people of how to treat these natural indigenous lands, so we can not only preserve it, but also keep it growing instead of, just these things being treated wrong.
And here are a few video tips. If you shoot on your phone, film horizontally or in landscape mode so that you can see the full background. And make sure to think about background noise and lighting. Remember to wear your mask if you're near people in the park.
And if you visit the park with friends, remember to social distance and stay 6 feet apart.
Most importantly, get creative and have fun.
There are so many ways to enjoy the regional parks.
We can't wait to see your videos.
As a former teacher, I give that an A+. That's just excellent. I love it.
Thank you, Chair, council members. Greg, can you advance the slide, please?
Can you just hold 1 minute, Tracy? I think
Absolutely.
Councilmember Johnson had a comment or a question. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't want to cut the presentation off. I was actually following along again with the PowerPoint. So a couple of questions. Will the video be closed captioned, or will there be a signer, since you can't read lips? And if you can't, you know what I mean? Is that an issue? I'm just curious. Maybe it's not an issue, but I wondered. Also, in the sample questions that were provided in the categories, are those the actual questions, or are those more topical and there will be many questions under them? And where I'm kind of reading some of this, do you support unique approaches to welcome new park users? As a person who has used the parks, I get what we're talking about. I just hope the questions are written in such a way that it doesn't feel like white majority questions asking other people questions. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Do you support parks and trails that include paddling on a water trail? I know what that means. Does everybody know what that means? I don't know. So I wondered, have we had somebody help us? Well, let me back it up. We all know, right, that how you ask questions in a survey, generates responses in certain ways. And so that's why I just want to be super careful that we're being, and I'm sure if MPOSCA went through this, or maybe the EQC or whoever, somebody who's, maybe you're all professionals at writing surveys. I just want to make sure that we're thinking about how we ask the questions. The other thing that I was curious about, in Reconsidering History, do you support efforts to tell a more inclusive history? Well, I don't know about everybody else. I would just like an inclusive history, not more. I mean, that's I want there to be more equity. I want there to just be equity, right? I mean, so I just want to be careful how we're asking questions. And the only other thing, which is, I guess, is not really where you're going with this, and this is probably me being too steeped in policy over the years, but there are no questions about how we fund or level setting, or what, is there going to be just a little bit of level setting as to why we're asking, or how the funds come about, and I think making sure that we get all the voices and as many people included in the survey is super important, because then we can get, what that best park system looks like. But I also know, as a policymaker, you don't want to go in limiting that data gathering, information gathering, but we all know resources are not limitless, and I always like to know, where does the funding come from? So those are just a couple of the things I think this is fantastic, by the way, don't get me wrong, but those were just some of the things as I was reading how the questions were worded. And then, you know, with social media too, I just assume that'll be Facebook. I see we have Instagram. I know we're on Twitter. We've got about 6,000 followers on Facebook, 1,100 on Instagram. I don't know what the demographic is. I don't know if we're on TikTok, but that seems to be where everybody's at right now that we might want to be going after perhaps. And the only other thing I would say is I don't know if we're on Nextdoor, and that might not be our demographic, but in love or hate Nextdoor, because I have a love-hate relationship with that. But when I get all those alerts that the county or the sheriff or the city or some government entity is wanting me to know something or wanting me to do something, because it comes to me if I've signed up, and it just seems like I live in a pretty diverse neighborhood in Plymouth, and I just see a lot of good discussions taking place in my neighborhood, just as one point of reference. So those are just some of the thoughts that were going through my head as I saw this. And again, I really compliment you on the work, and I'm very excited about the manner that you're approaching this in a creative way.
Council members, Chair, thank you so much for your comments. Just a couple of responses to your questions. Thank you so much about adding the comment about the closed captioning. We will look into that and try to accomplish that. Currently, the questions are exact and they're one-to-one right now. We will review that in terms of having more of appeal to a diverse audience. At the MPOS, to report back to you, at the last MPOS meeting on Thursday, one of our commissioners had requested and proposed a few definitions that may help with water trails and also land acknowledgement, which we are working on and we're going to be adding. So that will be added. Thank you for your comment about inclusive history to remove more, and we can do that. And then we can also add a question about funding or level setting. And yeah, you are correct about all of the social media that the council has. It's really pretty robust. We haven't looked at TikTok, but we can, and we can definitely look at Nextdoor. So thank you so much.
Chair, this is Council Member Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Go ahead, Council Member.
I just want to share that we just saw this at MPOS last week. I guess I'm a little caught off guard that it's already up and live, because we did have pretty extensive conversation about some of the challenges with language. And I think one thing I would just invite staff to do is, I think it's great to have CDC and I think we caught a lot of that in the MPOS meeting. So I guess that plain language piece, I think we just need to make sure that's a priority in our surveys, and that we really avoid industry jargon 100%. So I just want to co-sign on Councilmember Johnson's feedback related to that, and a great catch on closed caption, because that did not come up in our MPOS meeting. And I think that that is very important and a really good catch. Thank you, Councilmember.
Excellent points from both of you. Thank you. Anyone else before Ms. Kinney? Oh,
Madam Chair, just one more follow-up on that. And do we, this is going out in English. Is there going to be versions that are other languages in a format? And what, how do we, I'm just curious about all of that stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. There are 3 additional languages. Offhand, I can recall 2 of them. I think it's Somali and Spanish, and I think there's one more. I believe it's a Hmong language. And that the website is translated, the survey is translated, and I think those are the 2 items. We have other, if there are anything else that we can have them translated as we think of them or are going to be developing them. We're particularly going to be translating all of our responses as well to the public comments once we've received them.
okay. Ms. Kinney, would you like to continue?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. Chair, Commissioners, this is the last slide. And so we've already pretty much moved into our discussion period. Primarily here, I'm asking for your questions, and we're far into that discussion. Here are some questions for you. If you if you need some guidance, what additional organizations should we engage, and how would CDC members like to engage them? Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen has kicked us off with a really great idea of putting together an Excel sheet with all the organizations that we have relationships with, which we will be sharing with you, and you can add to it, and we will be circling back with you with a package of information next week if you have interest in engaging. So thank you, and I'll stand for any questions with Amanda.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is great. And like Councilmember Chambliss, my little brain is going, oh, and then this group and that group. I really, really appreciate, we've said so many times, engage us and use us to tap into the various networks and organizations and groups and constituencies that we have relationships with. And I think that this is just a great opportunity for us to get involved. And so will you be asking the rest of the council also to participate, so it isn't just CDC members?
Good question. Ms. Kenny.
Chair, Commissioners, right now we are engaging MPOSC and CDC. If your recommendation is to engage the full council, we will be happy to do that.
Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you. Just a little follow-up. I think that it would just expand the reach that you are going for here as far as engagement goes exponentially. So I think offering the opportunity and an overview to the rest of the council could be very, very important in seeking the information that you're looking for. And I think many would enjoy being involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, Council members.
So when we get that packet next week, we've all got to get our thinking caps on and go to work on helping identify those additional organizations. Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to make sure, I think this is the case. In the packet that folks will get next week, will it have links to the social media posts that the council is sending out, so we can just connect to those posts? And also that will also help the council to see the reach in their analytics. Or are you gonna, that would be my preference. So I guess we talked about that a little bit at MPOSC. I just wanted to see if that's the plan.
Chair, council members, I know that the package that we are putting together is going to have some starter language for emails and also some more information about those other two presentations. We are putting together a schedule for the social media posts, and if that is ready, we will be more than happy to share that with you. Additionally, we will be connecting with your staff member in order to be able to support you in the way you'd like to be supported.
I think it would be great, Chair, if I could, to have a sample, or not a sample post, but links to posts when it goes live included in that packet. So maybe we get the packet the day it goes live, or we tell people to expect for that to come. That way we can really know how effective this method of going about engaging is, and we'll be able to really track that, and also makes it a lot easier for folks to share on social media if they're just promoting something that's already there, as opposed to having to create their own post.
Chair, council members, that sounds good. We can do that. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, requests?
Chair, can I go next?
Yes, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I want to commend the staff for engaging the youth. As those of us get older and age out, the future of conservation in the parks really falls in the hands of the youth. And I remember when I was 16 years old in high school, I was engaged in the legislative process by Senator Steve Kelly from Hopkins. He had a a youth advisory council to advise his Senate Education Committee when he was head of the Senate Education Committee. And that really made an impact on my life. And I think that we engage our youth and continue to inspire them and make them feel like they have a stake in the issue and in the game, and that will open greater opportunities for them. And also, I look forward to getting the package so that we can give input on other organizations that we can reach out to. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your patience with me. This is great, and I know I was on a little subgroup of us. I think it was Councilmember Chambliss, Councilmember Alice Ingebrigtsen, myself, and maybe somebody else. I'm sorry, it was a little while ago where we were talking about engagement. I would say a few things. I think the council, all of the council should always, I think it should be a standard operating procedure that we all get informed about these types of engagements so that it's not subgroups of council members trying to reach out into the community. 17 of us have those connections, and whenever we're doing a project of this magnitude, or maybe others as well, I think it just behooves us to A, inform the council of what's going on, and B, leverage those connections. And then I would also, where else was I going to go? Sorry. I'm really tired today. I apologize.
Okay.
I guess that would be my main point. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is, so are we working with communications too then to put out any kind of press releases or announcements into, the local media, and again, those news outlets or information outlets that are, owned by BIPOC community owners, investors, or focused on that readership? It just seems to me this would be something really cool that could be run in a local community paper, because they're so hungry for the kind of news that I think impacts the daily lives of people, and especially as we're facing COVID, something like this is forward looking, and I think we've all been gaining an appreciation for the outdoors. So I'm just trying to think of those ways that you can, get some allies that also have audiences that it could be pushed into naturally, and I don't know if you're leveraging that at all.
Chair, council members, yes, indeed, we are totally partnering with our communication staff, and they've been wonderful throughout the whole process. They are putting together news releases and other articles that cover the policy plan amendment and the invitation to the public for advice. I will forward your guidance and advice on reaching out to news outlets that are with BIPOC owners. That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments? Anyone? Well, I want to thank Tracy and Amanda, and I know Emmett Mullins on the call too. I want to thank all of you and your team working with the regional parks. I had an opportunity to sit in on one of the IMPOSC meetings earlier this summer, and between that and these presentations to our committee, I feel like I've had a vacation this summer, which I haven't, but just through the wonderful photographs of the regional parks, it's kind of felt like a trip. So thank you very much. They've been great. With that, we've come to the end of our agenda. Thank you again. Is there anything we've missed, or is there any?
Excuse me, Chair Vento.
Yes.
We do have a budget item after the Parkway.
Jeepers,
There's
I'm
a third
sorry.
info item.
Oh, I was leaping ahead here. My apologies. Item number 3 under information. Poor Heather Agason-Hubner. She must have wondered what was happening to me. We have the third quarter 2020 budget amendment. Sorry about that.
No problem, Madam Chair and council members. So I'm here for an info item tonight. There will be an action item for the Q3 budget amendment on September 21st and then going to council the 23rd. And we generally do not do same week budget amendments, but just kind of a quirk of a calendar and budget development schedule, we're ending up having to go same week. So I wanted to make sure that I was coming to you today so you had some time to ask questions between now and the action item. And whenever there are any items in a budget amendment that are not what I would call standard or routine items, we do a presentation. I mean, as you know, we don't always do presentations, but anytime there is something new, unique, different that I want to make sure that you've got more background information, we're going to make sure that we do that. So I don't have as good a picture as Parks, but what I can promise is I'll try and walk through this kind of as quickly and succinctly as I can while still making sure that you understand what's going to be in the budget amendment on the 21st. So next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to, so the first, as I have some good news, is we have now gotten confirmation. We've got about $4.8 million in Federal CARES Act money coming in to support the HRA program. We've already brought in $1.1 million to pay for our administrative fees. And that's things like salary, it is things like paying for some of the relocation costs to get staff off site. What I'm going to be asking you to do is to be bringing in an additional about $1.4 million for administrative fees and another about $2.3 million for housing vouchers. So what those two items are really going to allow us to do is to make sure that we end up in the black by the end of the year. So when you see that we're bringing in new money for the Metro HRA, we're just bringing in the available Federal CARES Act money. Next slide, please. Okay, there are two what I would call structural changes that we want to make to the budget. They are, one is we want to create a new Metro HRA capital program. One of the initiatives we've been working on for the past year or two is, so we have 150 council-owned houses. We do maintain those, we do take care of them, but we really wanted to start a capital account for those so that we can more easily track and plan for the capital needs of those homes. And I'm not talking about, replacing a single window that's broken or fixing a faucet. I mean, these are capital investments for our council-owned housing. So as part of the 2020 budget, the council authorized $500,000 out of the general purpose levy targeted initiative for housing that's affordable. So all that we're asking you to do is right now that money is sitting in the operating budget right now. That's in that 2020 authorized budget status. It's sitting in there. All we're asking you to do is move it to the capital budget. So it's not any new money. We're just asking you to switch it from the operating side of the budget to the capital side of the budget. The impact on the 21 budget is that long term now, we want to start programming more capital type of items in the capital side of the budget and having the operating costs on the operating budget. So it's not any additional money. It is just programming existing funds that you have already authorized. Next slide, please. We want to do the same thing with the livable communities. We want to create a new capital program there. Right now, the Livable Communities program sits in our pass-through account. So right now, we've got about $25 million sitting in the pass-through account on the operating side of the budget, and there's about $75 million sitting in reserve accounts. What we want to do is move that from what's in the reserve accounts and what's in the pass-through account and program that to the capital budget. So with that, it's really an administrative fee that reflects past council action. Some of it is action that you took, some of it is action that your predecessors took, but we're not programming any new money. It is simply taking all the money that has been programmed for for grants that are already out on the street and moving that to the capital side of the program. That's going to let us do a few things. One, that's going to allow us to do better capital, or it's going to be able to do better reporting for just our control purposes, or kind of our internal controls. We're going to be able to do financial reports to our grantees in a cleaner way, which is going to be better customer service for them. So a couple of the things that, and we've been working for this for about the last, I would say 18 to 24 months, we've been kind of ramping up to just do improved reporting. So again, we're moving from money that's already been earmarked for the program. Grants have been awarded through the annual fund distribution plans. We just want to move that into the capital side of the budget. That's going to have a couple impacts on our 21 budget. First, you would see that pass-through account is going to be eliminated. So that would be one change that you would see that's different between the preliminary and the public comment. The dollar amounts won't change, just where you see it will. The new revenue and expenses, we're essentially going to have a 6-year CIP now. So we'll be planning out that Livable Communities program with a little longer time horizon. And then the capital funds are going to remain in the authorized capital program until spent. It essentially allows us to get those encumbered. And it's just been a process improvement project we've been working for in concert with some other council internal partners here for the last 18 to 24 months. Our external partners will notice no difference. I think it'll actually be better information for them because they'll have better reporting and can kind of see what those out years are going to look like with a little bit more definition to them. Next slide, please. The other thing that you're going to see us do is we had a conversation last time I was with you about investment of interest earnings. So what you're going to see in this budget amendment is really taking the action or the direction that you gave me and an equity grant program, and you're going to see that landed in that budget amendment. So that's going to look like $1.4 million of interest earnings will get brought into the equity grant program, and council bonds will be brought into the grant program. So what this will do is the council bonds, we have those for the equity grant program by year. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in both the 2020 programmed funds, which are in the authorized CIP, and the 2021 funds, which are in the authorized CIP. We'll move those from the planned action into the authorized. And what that's going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to essentially set an up to mark for the equity grant program. Council action will still need to be taken to set the final solicitation amount that you would like to give out and selection criteria. And then another unique council action will be taken to award grants to specific projects. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd pause to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll wait. I was going to ask a question, but you're priming it. Thanks, Heather. Sorry, my bad.
No. That's. I'm sorry, Chair, council members. I'm good. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask one question regarding, so MPOSC being a unique, being a commission, when it comes to identifying the final dollar amount and taking final action related to regional park spending, is that something that, like other things, which is outlined in the statute, has to be done in partnership with MPOSC and the implementing agencies, or is that just a vote of the council? Thank you.
Madam Chair, council members, when it comes to budget authorization, which this is, that is solely an action of the council. Now, as we build the budget, we certainly take advice and take recommendations, but when it comes to budget actions, that is solely a council action.
Other questions or comments? So we've gotten a heads up for tomorrow night's action item. And seeing no one else trying to get my attention, I'm assuming we've completed this discussion. And if so, thank you, Heather. It was concise and well presented. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And if anyone has any questions between now and the next CDC meeting, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to answer whatever I can.
We will. We will, and we appreciate it. And a special thanks to you, Michelle Winter, for catching me before I did something dangerous.
Anytime, I'm here for you.
And you know that I need all the help I can get. Anything else for the good of the cause? Seeing no one trying to flag me, thank you all very much on this chilly evening. I hope that you will keep Robert Lilligren and all of the people he's working with and for in your hearts, and hopefully there'll be good news coming soon on that front. So thank you all.